it's clear from the scriptures, it's that Jesus identifies himself with the poor. And I always think about, it was like bookends in his life. The first thing that he said when he began his public life was about the poor. He was about 30 years old, and he went into the synagogue, and they were a little suspicious. They didn't know who he was. Who's this guy? And they gave him the scriptures, and they said, you read the scriptures today. And he went to the prophet Isaiah, and it said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon him, because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. Bring good news to the poor. That's the first thing he says in his public life. He says to declare to the captives release and to declare the acceptable year of the Lord. And at the last, right before Jesus goes to his passion, when he's with his apostles and he goes up in the hill across from the holy city. I was in Jerusalem, and I remember looking over at that hill and thinking that the night before Jesus died, he was up on that hill. And the last thing he said was to his apostles when he said, when the Son of God comes, he will separate them out between the sheep and the goats. Put them on the right side, and he will say to those on his right side, I was hungry. You gave me to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me to drink. I was naked, and you covered me. I was sick in a prison, and you came to me.
Yeah.
And they will say to him, Lord, thanks a lot, but we never saw you hungry. We never saw you thirsty. We never saw you like that. We would have helped you, but we never did see you. And Jesus said, as long as you did it to one of the least of my brothers and sisters.
That's what he said.
You did it to me. You did it to me. So, when we talk about poverty, we're talking about Jesus. And I remember, I'm a big fan of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I read all his talks and all his sermons and what he did in his life. And I think that in his life, there were three struggles. In the first part of his life, he struggled for desegregation, and he won that struggle with the Civil Rights Act in 1964. And then he fought for voting rights, and that was a tough struggle, but he won that struggle with the Voting Rights Act in 1965. But in the last 3 years of his life, he was in a different struggle. He was in a struggle for economic justice. And that was a tough struggle. And I remember the day he got the Nobel Peace Prize. When he gave his talk that day, he said this: I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, culture and education for their minds, and dignity and respect for their spirit. He was talking about poverty. I lived for a while in Nicaragua, which is a very, very poor country. And I lived with a Nicaraguan family, and it was poor. We were real poor. We didn't have any car, of course. But we only had rice and beans to eat every night. That's what we ate, rice and beans. That was our supper. We were lucky because there were a lot of people there that didn't have rice and beans. They were lucky, maybe they got rice. But there was a feeling there about we're all in this together. Because everybody was poor. But that's not the case in this country. In this country, we got enormous wealth. And we got people that are living like kings and queens. And we got so many of our people who don't get enough to eat. Who can't get the health care that they need. And don't have a decent place to live. And in a country like this, that is an abomination. That is a disgrace. that is the opposite of everything that Jesus talked about in his life. And we as his followers have to do something about that. So, I was looking today at the statistics of people here in Kalamazoo. And I compared them with the statistics of people in Michigan and of people in the country. And right here in this nation, the poverty rate is 15%. 15% of our people live in poverty in the richest country in the history of the world. And in the city of Kalamazoo, it's more than twice that. 38% of the people in the city of Kalamazoo live in poverty. And I know that is not what Jesus wants. And I know that's not what Jesus was about. Amen.
That's right, Don.
And when I looked at the statistics on children in poverty, children that have done nothing wrong, and you can't say to them, well, they need to get a job. We know that's not the case. But in this case, in this nation, 1 out of every 5 of our kids lives below the poverty line. 1 out of 5. And in the city of Kalamazoo, it's 1 out of 2. More than 50% of our kids live below the poverty line. Now, my brothers and sisters, we know that's not right. And we know that we have a responsibility to speak up for them. We have a responsibility to change a system which leaves so many poor. Dr. King said one time, we all know the story of the Good Samaritan, how he got off his horse and helped that person on the side of the road. He said there comes a time when we got to ask how come there's so many people on the side of the road. And it's not enough to throw a few coins to a beggar, but we got to change the whole Jericho road. And I think that's where we are in this country now. I think that we are called to stand for justice. We are called to put the issue of poverty on the agenda for the city and on the agenda for our nation. In all the debates, and in all the advertisements that we see on television about people running for office, you don't hear the word poverty. It's as if that's a non-issue, as if that's not important. But Jesus tells us that's important. Jesus tells us that that's him. So, my brothers and sisters, I say to you that we got some responsibilities here. If we in the church don't speak out against injustice, if we in the church don't speak out about poverty, who is going to speak out? That's our job. We have to do it. So there's a lot of things we have to do here. I hurt when I see young people, 18, 22 years old, who have been so beaten down and have so lost confidence in themselves that they will not go to apply for a job because they got no confidence in themselves. They got no self-esteem.
Right.
We know that every one of those young people has the potential to make a great contribution to the society. We can't let that happen. In this city, we have the promise, which is a wonderful thing. Amen. But if we don't give families and young people the support that they need to get through school, that promise is not going to happen for them. So we have to do that. We know, everything tells us that the biggest indicator of whether a person's going to succeed educationally is the socioeconomic condition of their family. And when we got half our kids living in poverty, we're leaving them out. So my brothers and sisters, I'm being told I'm done here. But we're not done. We got work to do. to stand with the poor. We have to stand for justice. And will one Dr. King didn't get his dream fulfilled with poverty? The torch is in our hands, and we have to work for justice, and that every one of our people can have 3 meals a day for their body, culture and education for their mind, and respect and freedom and dignity for their spirit. Thanks be to God.